Achoo!
Shush! All rise, and welcome back to the Court of Judge Bookman, with me, Judge Bookman. Yay! And today, as you may be able to recognise from the background, we're reviewing a slightly more recent Disney movie. It's Beauty and the Beast, the live-action one. Yes. So welcome to the case of the viewing audience versus Beauty and the Beast, the 2017 live-action remake. And
Your
once again,
hesitancy tells me all I need to know.
Be quiet. I haven't introduced you yet.
Objection, Judge. I feel like the counsel for the prosecution is inferring from your speech that you may already have formed an opinion on this film.
Whether I have formed an opinion of this film or not is irrelevant. I will be completely neutral until the end. And anyway, as you heard by those rude interruptions, counsel for the defence this time is... Say hello, Muddles.
Hello.
Hello. If you watched the last one, you'll know that Muddles misbehaved slightly in the last review and was forced to watch...
I object to that judgment.
I know you do, but you still had to carry out the sentence. Was it fun watching The Little Mermaid 272 times? Muddles?
I don't think it was. I think her silence is her answer.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, and as you heard, the counsel for the lovely... Oh, shush. The lovely lady in the hat. And as
Can I
Muddles...
just say, for this review, I want to be known as Jack in the Hat. Because actually, I have mixed feelings on this film. So what I'm going to do is play devil's advocate a little bit and basically play the character of somebody who really hates this film, thinks it should never have existed, and that anyone who likes it should be thrown into a volcano.
That's perfectly fair. I will continue to call you Lady in the Hat, though, because otherwise I'll get confused. So, sorry, you were saying something, Muddles?
Can I make a point before we begin? Which
Very
is
quickly.
that I also have mixed feelings about this film, and I have in fact written a blog post in the past explicitly stating my thoughts on this film and whether or not it should exist. And spoiler alert, I don't think that this film should exist, but nevertheless, I will be defending it because I believe that it is often harshly judged.
Yes, and it probably will again
and
today.
I want to make that clear before we begin.
Anyway.
So in short, we all have mixed feelings about this film.
Yes, this is... Yeah, let's be honest, this is a film that's divided a lot of people and has divided us a bit as well. But anyway, moving on to the proper case. So we start, as per usual, with the plot. So, Lady in the Hat, who I'm going to keep calling Lady whether you want it like it or not. Lady in the Hat, do your case against the plot of the movie, please.
If I were to sum it up in 2 words, it's overly complicated. The original knew what to explain, what to leave to the imagination. You know, it was clearly far more tightly written. And yes, I know I'm comparing it to the original, but I think that's kind of the problem. This film is still over-reliant on what you know from the original to build its story. And with the new stuff, it's not really woven in particularly well. I mean, sometimes some of the new stuff is, like there's some of the new songs, but I feel additions such as explaining who the Enchantress is and how the curse works, things such as the prince's backstory, which doesn't really add anything. There are some good ideas, like the idea that the staff members are, you know, will die if the beast dies or remains a beast forever. That's kind of a good idea. I like the idea that they were trying to up the ante, but it doesn't work because since we've already humanized the Enchantress, it sounds like they're being unfairly punished by this horrible woman just because they happen to be servants who don't really have the power to speak out against their master. So, like, if they're going to add new stuff like that, they really need to know what they're doing. And here, I felt like it was added for the sake of novelty. It also creates new plot holes as well, some of this additional stuff. So, for example, Belle talking about the Paris of her childhood, even though it's also established that she was a baby when they left. So how does she know?
I've never thought about that.
Yeah. The plotting is also haphazard in how it plays out. So when we were talking about The Little Mermaid the other week, what I liked about it was that it's able to make the song, the story forward. And it's the same with the original Beauty and the Beast. But here, the songs are there because they're there.
Is
So
this
when
getting a
BR
bit
Guest
into the
comes
style
along,
rather
there
than
isn't a
plot,
lot of...
lady?
What's that?
Is this getting a bit into the style rather than the plot, lady? Try and keep to the
Well,
point.
it's not just about the plot itself, but how the story is actually told. I say style is more to do with aesthetics, such as the look and the music and the acting.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay, continue.
So, for example, with BR Guest, it's not really built up to as it is in the original. It just feels like, oh, this song's in the original. People remember it. All right, we're going to have this song. Looks good. But then we just move on, and it's like it never happened.
Mm-hmm.
So, also, there are some points in the story where it really does just emphasize the wrong thing. So, like the scene with the wolves, for example, there's this huge focus on like the lead wolf who has a scar on his face. And I thought, is he like meant to be like the prince's father, but enchanted? But then nothing ever really comes of it. So, yeah, to summarize it, the new stuff in the plot is overly complicated. It relies on your knowledge of the original way too much, which makes it seem rather hollow on its own. And it also just creates a whole load of new plot holes, even though it's trying to fix some of the supposed plot holes in the original.
Thank you,
I think
lady.
it would have been better. Oh, sorry.
Thank you, lady in the hat. That is well summed up. Attack on the plot. Muddled Medic, your defence of the plot, please.
Okay, so first of all, I'd like to say that I find it easier to, or perhaps more appropriate to look at this adaptation, not so much as in a comparison to the original, because we're not meant to be judging it against the original here. We're meant to be judging it on its own as a film. And as films go, as children's films go, I think it has a really, really lovely, very well balanced plot. So we have the same story. We have Belle, who is intelligent, who is kind, and who wants to improve herself and the world around her. And she gets caught up in this situation where she ends up trapped, offering herself up to her father, trapped in the castle, befriending all of these people, but still very much wanting to get out and get home. Even after she has begun to fall in love with the beast, she still very much wants to get home. And we really see her developing and learning how to love this new family that she's found and to love the beast. But she doesn't cut herself off from her father at all, and she still wants to go back and protect him. And finally, of course, she ultimately is the instrument that brings so much tragedy to the doors of the castle, ultimately leading to the beast's near death, and therefore the near death of everybody else in the castle. It, to me, I feel that this film really, really carries that off, because it's a story about internal conflict. It's a story about the internal conflict of the father who loves the daughter, but who cannot bring himself to tell the daughter the story of how her mother died because it makes him too sad. It's the story of Belle, who loves her father and wants to spend her life looking after her father and living with her father, but also wants more for herself. And it's the story of the beast, who wanted to create this little idyll for himself in his castle, but in trying to hold on too tightly to that ideal, he ended up dooming himself. It's a fascinating story. It incorporates so many things that we find in traditional fairy tales, but actually what this newer film does is it actually gives the characters a little bit more depth, and it gives a few more twists and turns and a bit more for the characters to explore. And so I really, really love it. I feel like the changes that they made actually give the characters more options and allow them to make more difficult choices. I feel like more of the backstory is fleshed out for some characters that we didn't know that much about. There were lots and lots of plot holes in the original. The biggest one would probably be, how long did Belle spend at the castle? How long did it take her to fall in love with the beast?
Oh, we're not
feel like
talking about the original, are we?
No. I'm just answering the point that the lady made about plot holes specifically, because she accused this film of having lots of new plot holes, and I want to explain that actually what they did is they closed a lot of the big plot holes, for example, around how long Belle was actually in the castle, how long she had to fall in love with the beast. They actually made the time scale really, really clear. And they also didn't force Belle to have fallen in love with the beast totally by the time that, you know, the big final battle comes round.
Objection, Your Honour.
Yes.
I don't think the original did that either, but that's all I'm going to say on the matter. Also,
No.
I think comparisons to the original are going to be inevitable.
I have to agree. It's difficult to talk about a remake without comparing it to the original, but
yes,
we will try.
We'll do our best. I just feel like we shouldn't dwell on the comparison between the two too much. The other thing that the lady in the hat mentioned is the way that the singing and the musical numbers fit into the plot, and I really disagree with her statement.
Okay. Amelia, are you there?
Yes, I am here. I'm just
Good.
quietly browsing Pinterest.
Good.
I never really got into Pinterest. Maybe we should review Pinterest.
We should. There's so much great stuff on there.
Shush. Okay,
Yeah.
we're starting again.
Anyway,
so
This video is sponsored by Pinterest.
stop. No, we don't have sponsors.
I wish.
This video is sponsored by me, Muddled.
Okay.
Disagree.
Shush. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Keep ranting.
And we are back after many technical difficulties.
Far
This I was
too
about
bloody
to
many.
say,
Anyway.
or may just have said, depending on your perspective, because time is magic, is that I disagree with the lady's point about the music. I feel like every song in this film furthers the plot. In fact, some of them are really, really fundamental in changing the direction that the plot goes. For example, This Is the Paris of My Childhood, which I think is technically a reprise rather than a song in itself, is a moment that really, really changes the direction of Belle's motivation. It reminds her about her father who's out there somewhere struggling, and it motivates her to make the decision later when she finds out that he's in imminent danger to go back and help him rather than stay with the beast, which is a really, really important character moment for Belle, whatever the version of the story you're looking at, because this is a moment where she says, no, I'm not going to throw away my old life for the prince like some Disney princesses do.
Let it go, Muddles.
She wasn't talking about Frozen.
I wasn't talking about Frozen.
I didn't mention Frozen. I meant I get on with it, you annoying pair of toads. Why do I agree to do these things? Why did I ask you people? Why? What? Excuse me, I go and bang my head against the wall. Do carry on, Muddles.
You get the co-hosts that you deserve, Tom.
I am literally banging my head against the wall. I hope you can hear that.
No, we can't. You probably need to do it harder.
No, okay, carry on. Carry on.
Okay. Yeah, so as I was saying, I feel like these songs and their inclusion is actually really well deserved. I love the build up to every song, especially the big numbers that we're all looking forward to. Especially Be Our Guest, actually, because I feel like, again, it really, really cements the idea. It strengthens the character of all of the servants in the castle who have just been on their own with a grumpy, depressed master for ages, and they suddenly have a fresh new person, and they
hurry up.
try and give her a good experience.
Move.
Judge, were you saying something?
Yes, I was saying, hurry up. We don't have all day here.
I know. But yes, I believe that every one of these songs is fully earned, and I believe that they are very, very useful in forwarding the plot and in explaining the characters' motivations. And that would be my defense of the plot. It's a fantastic story, and they do not mess it up here. In fact, they strengthen it and improve it slightly, I believe.
That's nice. Lady, the characters. Hurry up.
Hey.
Do you have another trial to get to or something, Judge?
Something like that. Yes.
I think you just want sweet release, like the sweet release of death. I understand.
You may have a point. Anyway, Lady in the Hat, your
Okay.
case against the characters.
Maybe
Go.
less morbid.
Pardon?
Okay, so I didn't find the characters too bad, to be honest. Like,
The
I
case
didn't
for
mind
the
most of the
prosecution.
background characters. I thought a lot of them were performed very well. In fact, all of the characters performed well. The only real issues I had were with Belle and with Gaston.
Mhm.
And I think, like a lot of aspects of this film, Belle suffers from this reliance on the original. Now, I don't hate Emma Watson. I think she did a pretty good job with the material she was given, but I don't think the material was particularly good. It felt like they were writing her in and then just making her character move through it by the numbers, rather than there actually be any kind of emotional resonance. A good example is when she encounters the Beast for the first time and she asks him to come into the light. And when she sees his face, she's just like, oh, okay. Whereas in the original, you could tell she's horrified, but at the same time, she's not so horrified to the point that she's going to judge. And I think that subtlety that we got in the original Belle, we just don't really have here. With Gaston, I'm split. Obviously, like, the original manages to be both a douche and also be really intimidating. I got the feeling they wanted to do something different from here. Again, that's fine. They decided to make it a bit more subtle, a bit more suave. He's sort of like, one of those pricks you meet on Tinder, rather than the boorish man of the original. But at the same time, we needed more foreshadowing of his darker side. In the first half of the film, he does just feel like a bit of a dick. And you only really feel that actually there's more of a threat to this person when he leaves Belle's father tied to the tree in the middle of the forest. Compare that to the original, where the first thing we see him do is shoot a duck. We know that this guy is capable of killing if he wants to, even if we see his more affable side first.
Oh, yes.
Also, the villagers just come across as being unreasonable arseholes. I mean, yes, they are prejudiced in the original, but it's a prejudice that just comes out of ignorance rather than malice. And, for example, in the Kill the Beast song, in the end of the original, you actually see a mother hiding her children and waving, a white handkerchief to Gaston. So they've just been encouraged to believe that people like Gaston are the hero. It's just their culture. Whereas here in this remake, they just seem so mean-spirited and to the point where it's kind of unnatural. Yes, people can gossip and people can be terrible, but they do tend to have at least a veneer of respectability rather than the open contempt we see here.
Objection, Your Honour.
Yes.
You're not so honourable, Honour.
Pardon?
Can I make a point of how I would interpret the mean-spiritedness of the villagers? So, to my mind, in this adaptation, they've actually all experienced a great amount of personal loss. And even worse, they can't remember what it is that they've lost. So while they might come across as slightly more mean-spirited and generally mistrustful in this film compared to the animated film, I would argue that is because a change has been made with the fundamental storyline, in that they have all had people taken out of their lives, and they all go through their day feeling like there's something missing and feeling a certain amount of bitterness and loss. And that is how I would put my spin on that.
Very good point, Muddles. Carry on, lady.
I would just counter that by saying that we don't find that out right until the end. If, like with Gaston, they just put a bit more foreshadowing of it in early on in the film and kept that up, I might be a bit more sympathetic, but you have like one throwaway line from a character and that's about it. So there's no real connection, I think, between their loss.
Isn't it also part of the opening narration? Sorry, isn't it also part of the opening narration that everyone forgot about the castle and the people inside?
I believe
yes.
it is.
Yes, but there's no real connection to that and just the mean-spiritedness of the villagers.
There's also numerous points at which the people in the castle mention people that they have lost, suggesting that they, who still can remember the people that they've lost, do feel that sense of loss, and that would imply that it is mirrored by the people that they love, who they cannot currently get to.
Very reasonable point.
Personally, sorry. Personally, I don't particularly see it, so I think we'll just have to agree to disagree on that point.
I think.
But otherwise, I really don't have a huge case against the characters. I suppose a lot of the issues I have with them are more to do with style. I think a lot of the performances are fine, and obviously some of the singing I have a problem with.
Yes, we'll get into that in the style. And
otherwise, I even liked some of the new additions. I like LeFou's arc, for example, but I would say the characters are they're the best part of this. I don't think they always get the best material to work with, though, and that is a shame. But that's all I'll say on the matter.
Okay, good. Muddles, defense of the characters, and hopefully won't be cut off this time. Do if we will, I don't suppose we'll notice.
I mean, to be fair, I feel like the lady's done most of my defence for me.
Yes, she has.
She has admitted that the characters are great. Belle, I really like. I feel like they add a bit more depth to her. I really love the relationship she has with her dad, and the whole, she always knows what he's looking for before he finds it thing, which is then, it comes back perfectly when they're escaping from the village. It's just, it was such a good moment, and it cemented this daughter who, yes, is doing all of the work that a woman was expected to do in that period of time in France, but she was also going and learning from her dad and almost like thinking ahead of him and almost getting better than him at the whole clockwork mechanisms and all of those things. She was I just love it. I love those extra little details that they added in to her character. I feel like people often criticize the acting of Belle by Emma Watson, and they say that she doesn't come across as particularly expressive. I would counter that point by saying that in the original animation, the face is animated, literally animated, as in, like, it doesn't have to follow rules of what a human face can do. So if you stick a picture of the animated Belle next to Emma Watson's Belle, yes, Emma Watson's face will look like a less extreme version of that emotion, because it is a human face, and therefore it cannot distort in the ways an animated face can. It isn't stylized, it's real. Going on to Belle's father, I feel like his character is so tragic, and I love it so much. He's just this sweet old guy who's lost so much and then has invested all of his love into his beautiful, wonderful daughter who loves him back as much. And it's just a really, really lovely relationship.
What about Gaston, Muddles? What is your defense about Gaston?
I really like Gaston. I feel like they picked a more subtle route for him in this film. In the beginning, when he's pursuing Belle, I know that the lady says that he doesn't come across as like sinister or evil enough early on, but actually there's lots of conversations where he's talking about pursuing Belle as if she was an animal that he was hunting, which is something that they carry from the original. But to me, I find it really, really creepy when, for example, he's rejected by Belle and he just turns around and smiles, because to him this is part of the thrill of the chase. And so actually, I find this version of Gaston much more intelligent and much creepier and more disturbing than a guy who just goes and shoots a duck, as he does in the original, to establish that he's a bad guy. This is a bad guy because he's pursuing a woman as if she were an animal, not because he's, going off and killing animals, which really makes you that evil, to be honest.
Says the vegetarian.
Well, I'm a vegetarian, but I wouldn't have been a vegetarian if I lived a few hundred years ago.
This is true. Anyway, moving on.
Anyway, he's hunting animals for food. They also establish that he's kind of evil by, for example, there's a moment with LeFou where LeFou takes him back to his happy place in the middle of a war with lots of recently widowed women around for him to do whatever he wants to.
Yeah.
And, honestly, that moment just sets him up. How it's just screaming, this guy is evil. This guy is evil. He loves killing people.
So no one creeps Muddles out like Gaston. Anyway, anything else?
Nobody creeps Muddles out like Gaston. The other amazing character that they gave so much more to in this adaptation is LeFou. Because can we just pause for a moment and appreciate the first openly gay character in a Disney film? Confirmed character.
Yeah, okay, fair. I'll give you that one. Yeah.
Obviously, fan theories aside, based lots of characters, but he is clearly openly gay, and it's fantastic to see some representation. And also, it isn't. I feel like it's relatively well done. It's probably not perfect, but also he's a side character. They couldn't put too much focus onto him.
Besides which, bearing in mind the time period in which it's set, it couldn't really be a perfect representation in any case.
Yeah.
It's kind of that's kind of the point, I suppose.
So a few other characters to briefly mention. The Beast is beastly as always. I feel like in this version, giving you a bit of backstory, telling, and also actually this also goes into the backstory of the other characters in the castle. They saw this child being essentially abused by his parents, or by his father after his mother died, for years, and they didn't do anything about it because they didn't feel empowered to, because they were servants. But you know what? I feel like the fact that they are punished suggests that it kind of backs up a message which is often said by abusers, which is that abuse victims or abuse survivors, is that if you see somebody being abused and you stand by and do nothing, you're not as guilty as the person doing the abuse, but if you know about it and do nothing, then you are still doing something wrong.
Objection, Your Honour.
Yes, lady?
I doubt that the servants had the power to speak out, because back then class really was everything, and you wouldn't be taken seriously if you were a servant and you spoke out. And if you were a servant being abused, you wouldn't be taken seriously if your abuser was someone of the upper class. And let us not also forget that this curse also inflicted Chip, who is a child and has no responsibility in all of this.
If you notice, I wasn't saying that the witch was right. I'm saying that it added an extra element to the characters of the Beast and of the servants in the castle.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And that it also potentially, it hinted at a wider message that we shouldn't stand by and let abuse happen.
Yeah. Anything else? Because we need to press on, really.
No, I feel like, I suppose the witch. I feel like the witch was given much more of a character here. Obviously, we still don't really understand too much about her motivations, but in a way, I think that's okay. It's a fairy tale. Nobody asks why the wicked witches in The Wizard of Oz are so dead set on enslaving the Munchkins or whatever.
Wicked.
It's an evil witch. She can be an evil witch, and just giving her that little bit extra, like the extra complexity of seeing her actually see the harm that she did at the end when the spell is reversed. I feel like there's just a little bit more to her, and so if you want to, you can dig into her character further, and that perhaps makes her again slightly more interesting.
Yeah. To add to that, there's actually a deleted scene apparently where LeFou actually meets the witch and asks her, "Was it really worth it?" and she doesn't have an answer.
Yes. Well,
Which is
that's the question. She was trying to stop a prince who was an incredibly powerful person from going too far down the wrong path.
But
and
anyway,
fundamentally, turning into the Beast was a therapeutic thing for him. It taught him a lot of very important lessons. But it came at a cost to a lot of other people. So it's a complicated issue, and I feel like they, I could spend half an hour discussing that.
Yeah.
We're not going to.
You heard it here first, folks. The Muddled Medic recommends if you have trauma you need to get through, turn yourself into a beast. Anyway, Lady in the Hat. Shush! Lady in the Hat. This could take a while, but I need you to bring your case against the style of the movie. And if you don't mind, viewing audience, prepare yourself for a very big rant. Yes.
Being British, could please call it a film rather than a movie?
No.
I thought a film. I'm not going to actually have a huge rant on this, because again, there's bits of the style that I didn't really mind, and then there's just Emma Watson's auto-tune. Let's just be real here.
Yeah.
And it's basically
yes, Muddled.
Can we stop referring to it as Emma Watson's auto-tune and say the general sound design of the film?
Yes,
That's fine.
that is
I will
fair.
not use that.
Emma Watson is not to blame for this.
Had enough stick over it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to hate on my girl Emma Watson. I still love her, not gonna lie. But basically, in this, the way they've edited it, it sounds like she's singing in a tin can, basically. And look, if she really struggled with singing, they should have just used another artist for a singing voice. That's absolutely fine.
I mean, Disney have been doing that for years. That's what they do.
Yeah.
Very few of the animated princesses ever sang their actual songs.
And Paige O'Hara's singing in the original is so iconic that, sure, nothing's ever going to measure up to that, but if you're using someone who isn't vocally trained, that's not exactly a ball in your court either.
No.
Of course, also because it's live action, it doesn't have half the expressiveness of the original. And in one sense, okay, I get that. Animation can bend reality in a way that live action can't. The problem is, though, it then results in a lot of uncanny valley when you have some of the characters who obviously try to make look more human, but it just ends up looking a bit creepy. Like Mrs. Potts and Chip are really the prime example of this. Just these human-looking faces on this object, but it's kind of cold and dead. It weirds me out. Okay, it's far from the warmth and charm of the original. Lumiere, I didn't mind too much. I mean, the facial expressions I had issue with, but his movement was okay. The motion capture was pretty good. I found that the characters who look non-human, like Who Met, actually work better. Same with Cogsworth. And if they made all the characters look a bit more like that, we would have less of this uncanny valley and unfavourable comparisons to the original. Furthermore, it would also give the film a much more unique look, so it's not just riding on the coattails of the original.
Yeah.
Is there anything else I can say?
I'm sure there is, but we probably don't have time.
No. So anyway, the style is never going to be the original, but the thing is, the fact that it sometimes tries to be like it really doesn't work within its favour, and it really should have tried to do its own thing rather than be the original and just end up being uncanny.
Yeah. And again, I'm going to say at this point, none of the singing is the actor or actress's fault. They did their best with what they were given, and then it was basically mangled. But anyway.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Muddles, your go.
Okay, so the first thing I'll address is the uncanny valley issue with the animated characters. To me, it doesn't actually particularly come off as uncanny valley because they're not human enough to get that bit in my brain. But everyone's uncanny valley is different. But to me, I would say that uncanny valley, I feel like actually they did the best job they could with the tasks they were given. The people in charge of animating all of the characters, they did their best. Given the task of recreating an unrealistic, very heavily stylized and animated, for example, a teapot, which can move and can bend and isn't actually a rigid object, and then trying to animate that as something which is rigid and made of China it was never going to look as good as it did in the original. And yes, you definitely could say it's creepy, but at the same time, does the fact that there is a human soul trapped inside a China teapot not inherently make it creepy?
Disney is weird.
I feel like actually it being creepy is not necessarily a bad thing. If you actually think about what's going on for that poor person.
Objection, Your Honour.
Yes,
I want to watch a romantic fairy tale, not a horror film.
Then you've come to the wrong global empire. Disney is creepy. We all know this. This has been true since it began. Moving on.
Heffalumps and woozles.
For example, I was thinking about pink elephants, but yes.
Yes. Yeah, we can't talk about pink elephants. Okay.
Because they're in the elephant in the room, you see.
So Emma Watson has a good voice. She's probably never done that much vocal training, but she also has a naturally good voice. It's actually really hard to find clips of her singing which are not from this film, which is a real shame because the few little bits you can find, she has a decent voice. She also has a very distinctive style. I feel like it's really, really difficult to try and sing the part that an amazing singer has sung, but put your own thing into it. And I feel like she actually managed to. The problem with this film is the sound design. It's not even just the singers. It's the fact that, for example, in the run up to the big "I want adventure in the Great Wide Somewhere," that chicken that caws, and you hear the chicken, and it sounds like it's in a recording studio, and there is a chicken on screen that is not clucking, but you can hear a chicken like it's.
You are supposed to be doing the defence, Muddles. You do remember that, right?
I know. Then, of course, there's the fact that everything that Emma Watson sung was so heavily cut together that there are times it doesn't seem like she breathes, where she goes straight from one phrase into another without there being a breath in between, which could only happen if her original recording was chopped up and then the best phrase from one recording was stuck to with the best phrase from another.
Mm.
In short, she probably actually sung really, really well. The problem is that the people in charge of this film weren't looking for good singing, they were looking for perfect singing, and that doesn't exist, and they tried to use technology to get there. But it kind of ruined Belle's singing a lot of the time.
Yeah. And
it made it sound, it took you out of the world a little bit.
Yeah, and it's a shame because Belle's singing was possibly the most noticeable example of this. It just happened with the others, but perhaps a bit more used to us.
But also, you're comparing Emma Watson, who is a really good, very talented actress, a decent singer who, with some good training, could probably be a very good singer.
Can we just pause for a second? I'm getting a phone call. Shush. Sorry, carry on.
What's that?
That was Dad calling me. Anyway, carry on.
Yeah. Okay. What was I? I was saying, yes, a singer who could be a good singer with proper training, and comparing her to some putting her film singing alongside some fantastic singers, like the actors who played LeFou and Gaston, and also the musical pair up in the castle, the harmonica and the dress.
Wardrobe.
Piano and the dress.
Wardrobe and harpsichord.
It is a harpsichord. Pianos weren't invented yet, Margaret. Muddles.
Yes, I know. I did say harpsichord.
And then you said piano and got it wrong. Moving on.
It was portrayed more as a piano in the actual thing, in terms of how it actually looked to work.
That is a good point, actually. That is a bit weird, thinking about it.
Yes. Anyway, and so that was never going to be an overly favourable comparison. That being said, if you are not a musician, which all three of us are,
yes.
If you're not a singer, if you don't know too much about music, it kind of works anyway.
I suppose.
Kind of. The problem is that they auto-tuned it to the extent that it's obviously auto-tuned, and a lot of people nowadays, because they've heard lots of people singing with auto-tune and it's so overused, have just started recognising it. But actually, especially when I first heard this, actually, I hadn't listened to too much auto-tuned music, and I didn't recognise the sound so much, and I didn't mind it that much. It's just that when you listen to it compared to what natural singing sounds like, and when your ear is attuned to to pick out auto-tune, then you definitely notice it. But at the same time, you can see why the people working on this thought that it was subtle enough that it wouldn't be noticed.
They were wrong, but moving on.
They were wrong.
Yes. Do you have anything else to say? Because we need to keep moving.
I was thinking about, well, the palette in this film is so bright and cheerful, and there's so much. It's amazing to me that it was actually filmed in real life, because they managed to get so much bright colour and so much contrast into this film. And it really does. It is as colourful, if not more colourful, than the original, and I really, really like it.
As evidenced by the background pictures of this very video, of course, which you can't see, but you know. But anyway.
And then, of course, in the castle, I also really like the gold creeping everywhere, which is not only quite creepy, but also, like, it seems magical,
yeah.
You know?
It's very nice.
Magical.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all also, very nice, but we must be moving on.
Yes, we must move on.
Yes. So, do you of you have anything else to say before we get to a closing statement? Any other points you wish to make?
Just a few points. I felt some of the queer baiting in this was just a bit annoying. It's like, if you're going to have an openly gay character, just go the whole hog and don't just tiptoe around it in order not to offend people.
Yeah, it
I
didn't.
also think the feminism...
How did they tiptoe around it? They made it really clear that LeFou was into Gaston. They made it equally clear that Gaston was not into LeFou.
It got banned
He's
in
not very much a friendship.
What countries was
Sorry?
it banned in again because of this? I forget. Was it Korea or
Can't remember.
China? It was.
Also,
And then at the end, LeFou definitely gets his... You know, that there is a moment at the end where we get to see LeFou dancing with another guy.
I know, but it's not exactly centre stage, and it's not exactly a character.
It doesn't-
You're looking for it.
It doesn't have to be centre stage.
He's not even like he's Gaston's accomplice. Like he's
Puppy.
He's the equivalent of the hyenas in The Lion King. They don't get much character development.
But they don't need it because they're hilarious the whole way through.
I kind of have a problem with the hyenas in The Lion King. That's another day.
Yeah.
I also think some of the feminism in this, it's just a bit in your face. I mean, I consider myself a hardcore feminist, and the original film is feminist, but it also knew how to tell a story, and it was feminist enough without having to say, like, oh, look, Belle also invents things. Oh, look, she knows how to, use a hairpin to unpick a lock, and it's like, we already know that she's a strong woman by the fact that she reads when nobody else wants her to. You don't have to turn her into Wonder Woman. Sometimes small acts are better.
I would say Batgirl was a better comparison, but yeah.
Yes.
I personally would say that the original Belle told young girls that it was okay to read and it was okay to love stories. But actually, those were things that were typically feminine anyway. This is, at least in more modern times, reading has been as accessible to women as it has been then.
I should say that for that very reason, Belle was always my favourite Disney princess as a child.
Yes. And, she was a reader, and that was fine. But in this, they actually, maybe the fact that she was a big reader and a book lover was a step forward when the original film was made. But actually, it's not a step forward now, or not as much of a step forward, or not as much of a challenging thing now as it was then. And actually, one of the biggest areas that we have problems with now is that there aren't lots of women in STEM fields, so science, technology, engineering, and maths, which are things that Belle is then shown doing in this film. And it might be a bit on the head, but actually, it's really, really important that young girls see representation of women inventing things, doing some engineering, doing really, really practical scientific things and developing new technologies. So I really, really love that.
Okay.
Even if it is a bit on the head, but it's so it's so important that women feel like they can do those jobs.
Yes.
And Emma Watson just made a film showing a woman hundreds of years ago when it was so socially unacceptable to doing that.
Yeah, good.
And to me, that's really potent.
Anything else quickly?
I'd just say that this was always going to be a divisive film. The original is going to be a classic, and it's going to stick in people's minds. So comparisons to the original are going to be inevitable or not. Also, adding new stuff is always going to be risky. I think some of the new stuff works, some of it doesn't. And if they'd just been a bit bolder and taken things from the original, but perhaps also went back to the original fairy tale, as they did with Cinderella, I think you'd have a film that would work better as a film. But whether it would resonate with moviegoers who are nostalgic about the original, I don't know. And I think all of that suggests to me that, maybe this film ought not to exist.
Okay.
I can't.
No, we have to move. We have to finish it here. So, Lady in the Hat, your closing statement, please.
My closing statement is that this is a film. It has some good points, but in my view, it didn't really need to exist, and whatever it does well, I think the original does better.
Okay, Muddles.
I kind of agree. I quite strongly believe that Disney should stop doing live action remakes.
You're supposed to be on the fence.
There's a but. That being said, I feel like this is one of the ones that I dislike the least and feel like actually does something a little bit new and gives Belle a bit more depth, gives the characters a bit more depth, and goes into things a bit more deeply. And if you actually look at the box office of this film, it's fantastic. loads and loads of people will see this story as the Beauty and the Beast story. Loads of kids now, this is their Beauty and the Beast.
Okay.
And that isn't a bad thing.
No, it could be worse. Mulan. Anyway. And now it comes time to the verdict, and you both argued persuasively. But honestly, I'm going to have to come down with Lady in the Hat and a lot of things. I don't think the actors were to blame for everything. I'm completely exonerating them for any kind of judgment. They were messed around, their voices were chopped and changed in the recording studio, and honestly, I didn't much care for the choreography in this film either. But that said, I did like some of the new songs. Evermore, for example, is one of my favourite Disney songs ever. So yeah, what would be an appropriate sentence? Prosecution counsel, what would you think an appropriate sentence for this film would be? Lady in the Hat.
No, because it's like, I don't really see this as a victory, because when you think about it, Medic and I mostly agree on things.
Yeah.
So I think what should happen is that this film should just be sent to like the top part of limbo, where it's not bad, it's not good, it just is.
Yeah, that's fair enough. It goes to the top part of limbo, which is the...
That you found this film guilty, because you haven't actually announced your verdict.
Sorry, yes, it is guilty. Yes, I should have said that. I thought I was clear from what I said.
It's guilty like Virgil is guilty, because he wasn't a Christian, so he went to the top part of limbo.
Yeah, sure. It's guilty.
It's like Virgil.
It is definitely guilty, but not guilty enough to be consigned to hell, especially not the actors and songwriters. I mean, they got the original songwriter back to do the music, Alan Menken, who is always the win. He has some of my favourite actors in it. I loved Gaston. I loved Ian McKellen, especially as the Clock Cogsworth. So yeah. Stop singing, Muddles. So yeah, that is the ruling. It's the film is consigned to top as part of limbo, but the actors involved are all released to act on beautifully. So thank you. It's goodbye from me. It's goodbye from Muddles. Say goodbye, Muddles.
Goodbye, Muddles.
You never cooperate, do you? Anyway, it's goodbye from Lady in the Hat.
Goodbye, and it was Jack for this thing, but you know what? I can turn back into the lady now, because I've already thrown everyone.
I'm sorry. I should probably bring up at this point, Lady in the Hat. Are you aware of the Geek Philosopher's bylaws involving random changes of identity?
No, I don't care. Goodbye.
Well, you should, because by changing your identity or attempting to change your identity for this review, you have actually condemned yourself to sitting down and watching this movie for film, whatever.
I did that anyway.
Yes, but 300 times before the next review.
Alright, if you come round to my house and make me do that, I'll do that.
No, I'm not going to come round. We can't come round to your house at this point in time, can we?
There's a small pandemic on, hadn't you heard?
Yes.
Well, I guess then it's just not going to happen.
Okay,
Goodbye.
fine. In that case, your sentence has increased. Lady in the Hat has been consigned to spend the next couple of weeks in limbo. Case closed. Goodbye.